overs remaining. How many of those will we see? Nat Siver into the attack from the far end. Cap driving and playing and missing. Loose shot from Marizanne Kapp at a new ball of Nat Siver's spell, especially when she knows that Nat Siver is such a keen exponent of the swinging ball.
It seems a strange shot, doesn't it? I mean, it is a strength, as we spoke about.
Just looking at the replay of the Sekakuni drop, it was just like catching practice, wasn't it, George? You see it when players are warming up in the morning, the coach with the open face as Siver bowls to Kapp. Again, it's another loose drive outside off stump that Kapp has missed. Marizanne Kapp suddenly forgot the state of the game. Played 2 white ball drives. There's a deep point been posted out in front of the Andy Caddick Pavilion. I'm trying to decide if that is England because England are conscious of the runs, because Kapp played 2 cover drives in the previous, a cover drive and an on-drive in the previous over, or because they don't mind Kapp taking a single. Siver bowls again to Kapp. That's a better defensive stroke. Pushed up towards mid-off. No run. 177 for 5.
Yeah, those 2 shots, those 2 play and misses from Marizanne Kapp. I wonder if somebody's told her if she makes 50, she'll only become the second woman to make 150 and a 50 in a test match.
Right.
I wonder if the word has got out.
What's the most runs a player has made? I know there have been people who've made double centuries, Phil. Siver bowls to Kapp, who defends up towards mid-off, and there's no run.
Kiran Balush, who holds the highest individual score, also holds the highest number of runs in a test match. She made 242 in the first innings, 22 in the second, for a combined match total of 264.
Marizanne Kapp's way off that then. Siver pumps her arms towards Kapp, leaves the ball alone, goes past the off stump. 1 delivery of the over remaining. The lead's 44.
Yeah, the only other player in women's test history to make 150 and a 50 in the same test was Emily Drum, who did it for New Zealand against Australia in Christchurch back in 1995.
That fielder's coming in from the point boundary to make sure that Kapp doesn't pinch the strike. I cannot believe they're still playing. It has to be said, it is bucketing down. Siver bowls to Kapp, who drives nicely past the dive of Tammy Beaumont, who could be flopping into a swimming pool. The way that she threw herself at that ball, not least because of the way she did it, but also because of the wet weather. That might be the last action for a little while. The umpires are going to come together once more. Scores 181 for 5. The lead 48. Anna Harris is striding towards Sue Redfern. England are trying to get round to get into their fielding position to say that they want to carry on. Of course they do, but it's got heavier again. You can hear it.
Yeah, it's visible as well now, isn't it? All across the ground. You said the England players are at their positions desperate. South African girls just holding their bats, drying their bats, making a point that it is heavy out there.
At what point, Georgia, is this unfair to South Africa, actually? They should, in my opinion, they shouldn't be playing in this, should they?
Yeah, I know. I do agree. I think desperation to get the game on is the only reason that they're staying out there. But for South Africa, yeah,
we're all up for that, aren't we? We want to see cricket played. We want the game to go to its natural conclusion. But it really is raining heavily. Wong bowling to Sekakuni, start of a new over. Sekakuni lets one go past the off stump, and I think that is going to be it. Anna Harris is coming. Yep, Sue Redfern says we're off. I'm not entirely sure what changed in that one delivery that Izzy Wong bowled, other than Alex Hartley came in to replace Georgia Elwis. It was a really strange situation where the umpires came together, decided that they were going to play on. Izzy Wong bowled 1 ball, and then we've all gone off. And now Kapp and Sekakuni are scurrying for the dressing room, perhaps never to be seen again. Get in there, lock the door, don't come out until tomorrow morning. South Africa are 181 for 5. They lead by 48 in that little mini session where we had 10 overs. Phil?
We came back at 16:07, yeah, in the 63rd. We had 1, 2, 3, 4. We had 7.
So they pushed the score on from 100.
What came after 6?
They pushed the score on from 140 for 5 to 181 for 5. Sekakuni was 19. She's now on 33, having been dropped on 33 by Eccleston at second slip off the bowling of Izzy Wong. Marizanne Kapp goes from 17 to 43. The South Africa lead is 48. Alex Hartley, is that the ball game?
Yeah, you've got to think so, haven't you? Frustratingly, I mean, we can sit around for another hour and a half, but it takes a while to put the covers on, take them off. It's heavy out there now, probably the heaviest we've actually seen it for a while, or the heaviest we've seen it for a few hours. And if I look over to the left where the weather's coming from, there's patches of whiter cloud, but it looks pretty set in. That hill in the distance has disappeared.
Yeah, it looks pretty grim out there. Tea's been taken 4:30, so that's now. That feels optimistic. I fear, Alex, we may struggle to see any more cricket. We can play for quite a long while, but it's looking at that radar, it looks quite set in, I'd say. And we can hear it hammering down the effects microphone. I always think on a radar, you know those multicoloured radars that tell you how heavy the rain is?
When you get a big purple one, that's when you know it's coming.
It was white, which is the most...
Oh, is it?
Most of the worst of all. White hot, almost, but, rain. And we're going to have rain, I think, for the next 2 hours.
Oh, well, that's it. Game done and dusted.
Well, it might be, mightn't it? And you know what people are going to say?
Should be 5 days.
Well, that and women's tests are always a draw.
Well, it's rained for 2 days.
It has, What hope have you got? Here come the ground sheets. You'll hear them being dragged across. And the ground staff have been really busy. And you know what the forecast is tomorrow, don't you?
It's bright sunshine.
It is, yeah. What can you do?
We can't do anything. And actually, it's actually been a brilliant test match. And Sakakune for South Africa has been absolutely outstanding. Yes, she was just dropped in the slips by Sophie Eccleston, but it probably wouldn't have made all that much difference because the rain has come and they would have been off anyway.
Indeed. Came in as a night watcher last night. Still there. I know we haven't had a full day's play, but she made 33, which is more runs than she's made in the rest of her international career combined. So that's pretty good going. And so what can you do? The forecast as we'd see it is, as I say,
wet.
Sort of, yeah, it's more of the oranges and the greens that I'm looking at the moment.
You just went on your maps. That's not going to help, is it?
It's not going to help,
That's you've seen how long it'll take you to get back up to Edgbaston.
About 2.5 hours, I reckon. Yeah, here we go. So just rumbling across
Taunton.
So
it's a lot of rain and it's heavy now. It is really heavy. It's such a shame because it would have been a belter of a test match. It was set up beautifully days 1 and 2, and then it's just rained consistently for the next 2 days.
I know. Frustrating. We didn't even get to our quiz. We didn't even get a result in that, which is disappointing. Phil Long, another scorebook that's going to say test match drawn, I fear.
I think as you just mentioned there's a kind of story behind each draw, isn't it? I know we do bang on a little bit about it should be 4 or 5 days, but we have had a run of women's test match cricket where we've been unlucky with the weather. We haven't come and had 4 glorious days. There's been no chance of it being 400 overs. Where the games have looked to get into position, with this one being in particular, and then the rain has just meant we can't even manoeuvre a result. We can't even manufacture a result because the rain has just come and just wiped it out.
I think in terms of how this process is going to work, they think they can shake hands at 6.
Yes.
And so in that case, you'd have thought it won't take that long for the ground staff to say, well, so much rain's fallen, it's going to take us over an hour to get it done.
Yep.
We're already at 25 to 5, so they might not be too far until they're thinking, do you know what?
Let's call it a day.
Put a fork in it. We're done.
Get me up the M5.
Well, indeed. But it's frustrating because we've had a great old time and it's been a really entertaining game, and we've seen some superstar performances as well. Marizanne Kapp with that 150. Centuries for Siver, Davidson, Richards as well.
They seem like a long time ago, don't they? Because we've had a lot of sitting around in between those magnificent innings, and then Sakakune for South Africa again, outstanding. Izzy Wong with the ball, brilliant. So it's been a good test match, but probably another draw.
Yeah, which is a real frustration. Just seeing pictures of the crowd. There appears to be a couple that are sitting in the pouring rain, and also she seems to have brought her carriage clock along with her.
She has indeed, and it's actually her handbag, but it's got a clock face on it, which is brilliant.
It's absolutely magnificent. It's the silliest thing I've ever seen in my life. Anyway, I want to go and find that lady. That is spectacular. So the score, as things stand, 181 for 5. The lead, therefore, Philip, is...
It's 48.
48. So let's not forget, for England to win this game, they'd need to take the remaining 5 wickets, then score however many runs would be required. Now, earlier on, if you missed it, Joss Buttler announced as the white ball captain for England, replacing Owen Morgan. We know the England test side for the men's test between England and India tomorrow. Jimmy Anderson back in. Ben Foakes not fit, so Sam Billings will keep wicket. And
Phil's doing something. I think he's trying to tell us it's tea, but we knew that.
Oh, sorry, I apologise.
I thought you were asking for a cup of tea.
Yeah, I thought that'd be a bit odd mid. Yeah, apologies, Henry.
Not at all. So tea has been taken. The rain is falling.
Do you want a cup of tea?
You got time. So we're going to have a little bit of a break. We're not going anywhere because we still hope you've got to keep your fingers crossed, haven't you?
We'll be here until it's called off.
We certainly will. But we've got a bit of a treat for you because you were part of this. You were one of 4 spin bowlers as part of the TMS team at Headingley for the final test between England and New Zealand. Phil Tufnell, Vic Marks, Moeen Ali, Alex Hartley. Only 2 of those have won a World Cup.
Yes. Very exciting.
Yeah. And we had a bit of a sort of spin chat, let's call it. So let's have a listen to that. We're going to hear about the art and craft of spin bowling. So we'll join Jonathan Engw, who assembled his spin quartet.
Now then, as promised, we're assembling our spin quartet. We've got representatives from a range of eras. Are you sitting in order? Actually, I think you are probably just about sitting in order. Down at the very far end. Vic Marks played from 1975 to 1989. Phil Tufnell.
Hello.
1986 to 2002. Moeen, of course, still playing for England. They're playing franchise tournaments like the IPL. Alex Hartley, a World Cup winner with England in 2019, still playing. Welsh Fire with 100 this summer. Alex. So, I mean, it's a range of questions. And again, if you're listening and got any questions for these spinning gurus, then please jot them along. Let's start with you, Victor. Why did you become a spin bowler? It was perhaps a silly question because I can't imagine you being a fast bowler necessarily. But why did you choose spin?
Well, it's so long ago, can't remember. I guess.
But you're entitled at 67 to forget these things.
I think I did. It was a bit like you suggested. When I was about 10, I thought I'd be a fiery fast bowler. And then I realised that I couldn't bowl very fast and they kept hitting it for miles. But actually, in terms of professional cricket, very few people believe this who've actually seen me play. I was signed by Somerset as a batsman. Well, Mo will understand this, actually. Not as good as Mo, but I was signed as a batsman.
Really?
And essentially, I learnt to bowl spin, having bowled a bit in my teens as a sort of, part-timer. I learnt to bowl spin at university because I was able to play first-class cricket there, which is a huge bonus. And in those days, bowlers were more valuable than batsmen. Batsmen seemed to be 10 a penny. So I kind of learnt quite late to do it as a professional. And, people are aghast that I actually got signed by a batsman by Somerset, but ended up being a sort of bowling all-rounder.
Yeah, that's true.
And it got me into the team. It was a way of getting into the team, but earlier than otherwise. So that's how I set off. In an age when it was a bit easier in many ways, but
you were so you were a batting all-rounder.
Yeah.
I'm pushing to describe the next in line necessarily.
Who's that?
I wasn't selected for my batting.
No. Which therefore I would have thought strengthens your spinning credentials, Tuffles.
Well,
because you were down there at number 10 or 11, depending on whether or not Devon Malcolm remember his glasses.
Yeah, correct.
So.
No, it's funny, actually, because I was talking to Alex about it earlier. I started off as a young fella, steaming in and wanting to bowl fast and what have you. And then I was in the Middlesex under-11s, and Jack Robertson. Do you remember Jack Robertson?
I do.
Yeah, he was down there in his cravat and his, looking immaculate in his England jumper, and he pulled me to one side and he said, you're not bad, you can bowl quite quick. But he said, there are a lot of quick bowlers about, and you're a left-hander, and why don't you have a little go at the old turning the doorknob like they used to teach it and what have you. And I ran up, and the first ball just spun like that, and I think the kid down the other end sort of played at it and he missed it, and it just sparked something in my head, that I sort of went, ooh, that's quite nice, and sort of, and I started to then sort of enjoy, instead of wanting to steam in and sort of knock everyone's heads off and bowl fast and what have you, I quite enjoyed the kind of sort of cat and mouse sort of, sort of aspect to it all, and a bit of flight, and there's nothing better. I mean, you'd probably say being a seamer, seeing the old middle stump, cartwheeling out the ground. To me, nothing better than some guy coming steaming down the pitch and missing it and getting stumped, and he's all sort of like,
That's your dream dismissal.
Well, it is
You
a
like
bit,
that?
yeah, because you've really sort of outthought and sort of done, done him. You've done him. So that's how I started.
Yeah. How did you start, Mo? Were you a batsman originally like Victor? Or were you...
I was a all-rounder, actually. I used to bowl seam up till...
Another one?
Yeah, till 14.
See, I've got a theory. I'm not going to break it yet, but I've got a theory as to why this is. But anyway, carry on.
And then at 14, I hurt my back from bowling seamers. And then I always imitated spinners, so I always copied current players like Asher Giles, Saqlain Mushtaq, all the spinners, Robert Kraft, whoever I saw, I always copied them, playing matches in my back garden with my brother. And then one day, Steve Perryman, who was a coach at the time at Warwickshire in the academy, goes, and I was just bowling a few off his, copying a few guys, and he saw one, and he's like, you can actually bowl spin. And then it was hurting anyway, my back was hurting, and seamers, I was like, those days, and you can only bowl 4 or 5 overs at the time, the spells with spin,
course, yeah.
You can bowl a long spell, and I used to get bored in the field, and I thought, you know what, let me try and take it on, and that's how my journey started.
Yeah, and so from 14, it obviously went up pretty fast.
No, I actually didn't bowl too much initially, but I kept practicing for a while, played then first class cricket for Warwickshire, made my debut even though I was batting a lot of the time, I was more as a batter. I played as a spinner, like for England in the end, number 7, who's going to be our off spinner, because Alex Loudon at the time got picked for England. So then I played as a part-time spinner. I didn't get any wickets on my debut, but bowled okay.
Yes.
And then from there I just bowled a little. Went to Worcester, had Gareth Batty, Ray Price as his main spinners, and once they left, I started to bowl a bit more, and then I had 1 or 2 years as a frontline spinner, but even then didn't bowl too much.
Yeah. Alex,
You
last on
guessed
the queue.
it. I was a seamer.
My theory is going to... okay, go on, carry on.
I bowled seamers as a young under 11. I played my first game for Lancashire as a seamer, left-arm seamer, and bowled 12 wides. And the coach pulled me to the side at the next training session and said, I don't think you're going to be very good as a seamer. Even though I'd been picked for Lancashire under 11s or whatever it was, I think you should try left-arm spin. And what we're going to do is you're going to get a ball and you're just going to keep throwing it in the air and twiddling it in your fingers until you find a natural seam position or wrist position that works for you. And then he said, whatever you do when you get home, do it with an apple, do it with an orange. And I bowled for hours and hours and hours into a bin in the back garden, and my mum and dad would be getting the ball out of the bin, giving me back, and I just fell in love with the challenge of trying to become a spinner.
And did you spin the ball from the very start?
No, and I still don't now, to be completely honest, not all the time. I had to work incredibly hard. Yeah, it felt natural, and I think just the ease of being able to just wander in and beat the outside edge really captivated me, and I was the only spinner in the Lancashire team growing up as a young kid, and I remember my first game picking up 3, 4, 5 wickets, and I was like, this is good fun, I can just beat the outside edge and make batters look silly.
Yes. My theory, therefore, I know it's true of Victor, and I know it's true of Tuffers, but Mo and Alex, I don't know you well enough. You're all competitive, aggressive so-and-sos.
Well,
aren't you? That's why you are fast bowlers, because although people think that spinners are nice, gentle souls who toss the ball up, actually inside, you don't like batsmen smacking you, and you're fiery.
I'm so fiery.
Mo's the one. Mo, I'm not sure is fiery, but you're competitive.
I'm competitive, yeah.
Yes,
I am competitive, yeah.
Of course. Yeah.
But actually, the guys, somebody told me that when you start as a seaman, you swing it away, you actually have a natural, for a finger spinner,
Correct.
you have a natural sort of action, you finish it off, and that did help us, for me personally, become a finger spinner.
A lot of people start. I mean, Eddie Hemmings was a seamer for Warwickshire, and then changed mid-career, and lots of us. I mean, it didn't apply to me so much, but lots of them began as away swing bowlers, and switched to spin.
Yeah, and if I was ever going to, get a young boy or girl and teach them how to bowl spin, I wouldn't actually, tell them to bowl spin. I'd tell them to actually bowl seam up and then incorporate
Get the basic action.
Yeah, get the action right. It's very difficult, and you see a lot of people nowadays, or what I did when I was around, sort of like, stuttery spin bowlers. Difficult to say that, stuttery spin bowlers. And, you know, they're sort of like, they're all arms and legs, and it's sort of a bit awkward at the crease. And that's, you know, sometimes because you're sort of, it's quite a difficult art to get right from a blank canvas, you know. Get yourself running in and then just slowly sort of, you know, you keep that rhythm and that sort of like follow through and what have you. But when you're taught to bowl spin from, as you say, a blank canvas, it's very difficult to sort of try and get that feel, as Mo and Alex were saying, you know, get that feel for your wrist. It goes everywhere.
It's interesting, we've got two off spinners and two left armers here. If they have the yips, Tuffers, I mean, or Alex, if they have the yips, are they also left arm spinners?
Well, there again, sorry to butt in, but there again, that is because I always just went back to that sort of seam bowling action.
Right.
You know, and it wasn't, so many left armers have the yips. No, touch wood, I still have to do it, sorry.
I don't think anyone's... No one's too bothered whether you get the yips now.
The yips as much as you like.
Hey, listen, concourse cricket, you don't want to get the yips, mate.
No. But are you aware, and I should explain
No,
to
you're
listeners,
going to put something in my head here.
The yips is losing your run. I mean, just losing your approach and the ball flying all over the place, which seems to happen more to left arm spinners than to right, and I wouldn't have a clue why.
No, I've never experienced it. I've had passages of, you know, time in my career where something's not quite felt right, but it's never been, you know, I've never had the yips where the ball's flying everywhere and I can't control it. I've always been able to control where the ball's going, just something's not felt quite right. But always go back to what we call basics and doing the simple things of I'd stand still and you know, bowl from standing still and get the feel of bowling again, and then it becomes normal again.
Is all left armers in your experience, Mo? Have you ever completely thought, well, I've lost my run, I can't get there, I can't let it go?
I think mine's a little bit different. I was never one for control and this is my area. Only in the latter stages of I was always somebody who always thought about, right, I'm going to try and rip one through the gate, or I always felt like I had decent spin on the ball. But I never was one for... I actually was not somebody who repeats my action all the time, and that's probably why I struggled at times. I was somebody who had 2, 3, sometimes 4 actions, slightly different actions, and depending on what
intentionally
in the end.
Did you really? Wow.
So when Sack Lane came as a bowling coach, I said to him, look, I've got a few actions slightly different, is it a good thing? Is it bad? He said to me, look, let's use it as a strength. So when the conditions suit, you pick which one is good and you go with that one, which is a bit strange, but I actually enjoyed it.
And how do they differ then? I mean, do they differ? Obviously, if I was watching you from here, would I be able to tell them apart?
Yeah, you would, yeah. There was times where I went real tight. When I really wanted to focus on an area, I went tight. I got better shape for some reason. Sometimes I started with my arms out, and sometimes I'd actually load from low. And even though it meant I leant a little bit away from where I wanted to go, I felt like as long as I got control here, it wasn't too much of a problem. Yeah. For some reason, I don't know why.
I used to notice that sometimes. You set yourself there as opposed to sort of coming round.
And that was depending on, my confidence, the surface. I know what I was trying to do and what was working at the time. I wasn't, even with my batting sometimes, it's about, I played the game, I think, just go with the flow kind of way. Yeah.
What's interesting is you hear a lot about people repeating the action, don't you? Them of repeating the same action over and over again.
To repeat.
4 seems remarkable.
Yeah, for me, repeating got a little bit boring, to be honest with you. In anything I do, it's like when I repeat something all the time, I find it a little bit boring. So I always had to try and find something. So even now with white ball, I'm trying to work on something to flick out, just because I believe in white ball cricket needs something else as well.
Yes. Let's talk about the psychology of spin bowling, which again for our 2 more senior members here, Victor in particular, but you Tuffers. I mean, you of course you played one-day cricket and you played one-day internationals, Victor, very successfully. But not quite the same attack that the modern like Mo and Alex are encountering.
I mean, the game has changed so much.
Yes.
That it was, by comparison, an incredibly simple operation. Now, Mo, you won't believe this, but I'm going to tell you anyway because it sounds good. But when I played one-day cricket for England, I went on average for 3.3 and over,
the dream.
Which was quite good by the standards of the time, or something like that anyway. And modern players just can't comprehend that because you just can't do it now.
No.
The way people play spin has completely changed from when I certainly played one-day cricket, and to a large extent also in the red ball game. So I don't know how you try and learn to cope now, but the problems faced now, people never... when I started playing certainly in limited over cricket, if you put a deterrent out at long on, they wouldn't think only about 5% of them would think, well, I'll clear him. If you bowled on middle and leg stump to a right-hander, about 90% of them said, well, I better hit it on the onside then, where you've got 6 fielders. You could have 6, all those things that were just, I mean, reverse sweep. I played against 2 or 3 players. Both used to reverse sweep.
Mike
Gatting occasionally. Well, yeah, he did it against Alan Border, and Pring used to do it occasionally. Not many people. So it was such a simpler operation than it is now.
I tell you what I think is going out of the spinner's armoury, and you were talking about one-day cricket and T20s and things like that. A lot of spinners now, they run up and they bowl it into the pitch, to try and keep people trapped. What I tended to do, if anything, was to pop a few up in the air, and flight and guile, and I think that's sort of, like we've watched Jack there, he's bowled nicely, hasn't he? He's bowled nice, he's bowled accurately, repeatable action, but then sometimes you've got to sort of try and you can only get good batsmen out with things like drift and a bit of flight, because you make them misjudge their shot. I wasn't trying to sort of like pitch a ball on leg stump every time and hit the top of off, which I think a lot of the spinners I see, especially in one-day cricket, try to do now. You pull them around the crease a bit and sort of, toss the odd one up, but then you've got to have good control of that flight.
Yes. The only slight trouble nowadays is mishits go for 6 anyway.
Does that all sound terribly old-fashioned to you, Mo? I mean, what were you, when you've now got batsmen with these mighty bats coming at you, and you know that they're going to come at you, how do you get that in your head that you're not going to be intimidated by it?
Yeah.
Do you know what they're going to be trying to do? Give me the thought process of
It is a difficult one, because actually the pressure is still on the batsman, because being a right-hander, there's so much pressure on you now to take me down as an off-spinner, because the stats say, off-spinners shouldn't be able to bowl at right-handers, all this kind of stuff. But the difficult thing for the spinner in 50-over cricket is you've got to have one person up in the ring now. So and that makes it difficult. So if I have my offside up, I feel like I can't bowl outside of stump as much, or if I have mid-off up, I can't bowl full and outside of stump. So I agree, like Rush always talks about, Adil Rashid talks about getting it up a bit more in white ball cricket.
Yes.
Let's try but I find it difficult, because I've got to have guys up and I try and control so then he can take wickets kind of thing. And it is very difficult, like going back to economy rates, if I'm going at 6 and over, I'm actually thinking I've done well there. Because the wickets are good, with almost brand new ball you're bowling with, and guys do reverse sweep, and you're just hoping in a way that they make a mistake, unless you come on a spinning wicket where you think, right, today I can be a bit more attacking.
Yeah, the reverse sweep is a nightmare.
Yes.
Is a nightmare, because it just pulls your whole field, and that would have been a nightmare. It just started coming in really quite a lot as I was retiring, but it was like, but then again, you see, what I enjoyed was T20, they're coming for you. Yeah. So really, that's taking one sort of thought process out of the game. They're coming to take you down, as Mo said. So instead of sort of waiting for and trying to judge when they're coming for you and looking for little tells when they're coming for you and getting it right and trying to do this and that, it's kind of almost done for you in a funny sort of way. I'd have quite enjoyed it, I think.
Yeah, but if you take it away from, or take it to the longer game, the other thing that's changed hugely, for obvious reasons, is that when Tuffer started, probably when you finished, you essentially, if you were bowling to a right-hander, or I was bowling to a left-hander, you were kind of looking for that outside edge, to beat him on the outside edge. Yeah. Stump him, caught behind.
Or miss-hitting.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. But the point is, nowadays, the finger spinner, who prevails in Test cricket far more than the wrist spinner, it's the finger spinner that play in the Test matches, their first, and Mo will correct me if I'm wrong, but your first port of call, if you're bowling to a left-hander, is to get him LBW. Yeah. Jack Leach, bowling to right-handers, his first port of call, LBW.
Huge difference.
And I mean, I think
that's
it's
DRS,
wonderful. And that's DRS changed that. I mean, Tuffers and I would have spent
thousands I would have got
appealing for these push-forward LBWs, hits the pad. Yeah. If they swept, they used to give them out. Yeah. But if they played forward to exactly the same delivery. So that's what's, in a way, it rescued finger spin, which was just going out of fashion. The fact that you can hit them on that front pad now, and that's what they aim at first. That's your first port of call now.
interesting.
Is the role of a left-arm spinner in women's cricket the same as men's? I mean, does it feel the same?
Yeah, there's lots of different types of left-arm spinners. You can be a left-arm spinner, whereas Sophie Eccleston, the best in the world, she's nearly 6 foot. She gets natural bounce in her deliveries. I'm a lot more round arm than a lot of the girls I bowl from probably 10 o'clock, not 12 o'clock or 11 o'clock. But my thing is, between the different formats, is it depends when you're bowling what you want to do. So if I'm opening the bowling in the power play, I'll bowl round arm and try and slide the ball into the stumps and not let the batter get up and underneath me and bowl to, the field that you've got set. Whereas if you're in a 50 over game and you come on in the middle overs, I'll try and beat the outside edge. I'll try and get the ball to turn away from the right hander. So you've got to be adaptable, I think. And if you get hit for 6 in a T20 but it goes over the fielder that's out there on the boundary, you've done your job. They've just played a good shot.
Yeah. And do you find that the approach of the batters in women's cricket has changed while you've been playing?
Yeah,
that they're more aggressive?
Yeah, I think my figures when I was growing up, when I first started playing, I'd even for England, I'd bowl 10 overs, 4 for 20 or whatever it would be. And then now in regional cricket, or the 100, I can bowl 10 overs and it's like 1 for 50. Yeah. So the aggressive mindset in women's cricket has changed, and batters are always looking to take down a certain bowler, and spinners obviously get that.
What about variations? Because Victor, I remember you had quite a cunning little arm ball.
Thank you.
Used to float out if the breeze was in the right direction. Tough as about an arm ball.
Yeah.
No, are arm balls still in, or are they kind of seem that it's a bit passé now?
No, it's definitely a dying art. I still believe there's a lot for the arm ball still. It does. When I try and bowl the arm ball, I actually don't try and swing it, whereas
Victor would have tried
to swing it maybe a bit slower.
Fred Tipton did a great arm ball, yeah.
It's almost now to try and trap the batter. Yeah. It's not even an arm ball really, it's more of like a quicker
toe ball.
Just try and trap him, even if it's short of a length, where you bowl back of a length. Because we bowl back of a length a lot more now.
Yeah.
You end up going back of a length, and then something that would slide on as much as you can to try and trap him, or he's going to pull you. Because actually batters now, if you watch them train, they're all training back of a ball length to pull.
Right.
And play different type of shots. Now, if you saw Josh Butler the other day, he played against an off spinner. He hit him off the back foot over mid-off. So the game is changing.
That was a ridiculous shot. I saw that.
Yeah, it wasn't that short. That was the worrying thing.
But he's been practicing that regularly over the last
gap
couple of years.
in the field.
Yeah. And so it's not really a swinging type of arm ball, which I think in Test cricket there should still be there. But in one-day cricket, it's more just to try and trap someone.
Variations, Alex?
I more use the crease for my variations and the height of which I bowl from with my delivery arm. I bowl the long ball from maybe stump length or further back to try and deceive the batter. So with that one, your action and your arm speed is exactly the same, but the ball will be half a foot shorter because you're further back.
Yes.
And therefore, when the batter's trying to look for that variation, there's nothing there until they've not quite got to the pitch of the ball. And similarly, you go a step forward and bowl from... I bowl in the middle of the crease, but for a quicker delivery, I'll bowl from the front of the crease.
Yes.
And just doing little things like that, as Mel said, I don't ever use my arm ball anymore.
Mystery balls. Well, where's deuces and things like that?
I don't know about them, but I think we should... The real thing that you want, that Tough has got more often than certainly I did, is you've got to... You don't always beat the batsman by turning the ball past the edge. You beat them by getting them to misjudge the length. And if you're bowling really well, and the top bowlers do this all the time, whether it's from Shane Warne downwards, they kind of get that dip at the end. They're spinning the ball and it just dips. So, I remember this when I first started playing against Abdul Qadir, and you'd be batting there, and you think, oh, hey, he's bowled me a full toss. And then it would come a bit further towards you. Oh, well, not full toss, but half volley. So we'd be all right. Boom. And then by the time you got there, you're groping, and it's pitched on a length, and you're out of control. And that's the real magic. That's when you really trouble batsmen, not just by getting it to go sideways. And Tuffers did this, because Tuffers would do it in the air.
Flight
and they misjudge the length. That's the crunch. If you get them doing that, then you're in business. But it's hard to do, isn't it?
Yeah, I actually...
And you can get it. You get it dipping, don't you?
That's where I believe the art of spin bowling has really changed, and that sort of setting batsmen up, going straight, maybe wider, that has definitely almost gone out. Maybe Ashwin, even Lyon to a certain extent, he's just got a really good stock ball, but it's a lot of action, but there's no there's no like flight or anything like that kind of stuff. And that certainly has gone out the game massively compared to when you used to watch cricket as a youngster and you see guys getting set up a lot more.
Bish and Beddy and all this lovely, beautiful rhythm.
But the one thing that, was that I was always told was wherever you bowl, try and spin it as much as you can.
Right.
So whether it was a slower one, a quicker one, just always try and rev it as much as you can.
And
Yeah, I don't
that
ever
will
try-
help it to dip.
dip.
It may not turn, but it.
Yeah.
And you got
Well,
that.
that's
You
right.
had that.
That's right. You've got to spin the ball hard. That's what you've got to look to do. But then, as you say, on flat pitch, his first day at Brisbane, let's say, you're not going to. Doesn't matter how much. Well, partly if someone like Shane Warne or someone, But if you're putting that on as a finger spinner, you're not going to get that one to go like that off. It's just not going to happen. So you've got to have something else up your sleeve, and that is a bit of drift, which then comes from the action on the ball, a little bit of dip and a bit of loop, because that's then the only thing you kind of got to try and deceive a very, very good batsman with great big bats.
I was just going to say, I don't ever try and set up a batter in white ball cricket by, I don't go by slow, quick. It's always stock ball, try and turn it as much as you can, like Mo was saying. Always try and spin the ball as much as you can. And you play on a lot of wickets that don't turn at all these days as spinners in white ball cricket, so therefore you have to be defensive in other ways and know that actually if you're holding up an end, your mate at the other end might be taking the wickets.
Doosra, did you ever try mowing? Because you're of that sort of era.
I saw you try a couple of doosers.
Did you ever feel that you had to try and do
I
something?
did initially try, but it obviously chucked it.
Not very accurately either.
Not very good, yeah. Sometimes it bounced right, and then I just gave up. But once I was obviously with England a lot more, and I thought, I actually need to get a decent stock ball first.
Yes.
But
you were of a time of that age where people were talking about finger spinners. Unless you can bowl mystery, forget it. And so you did try, but it didn't.
And even now, so like recently over the last year or so, I've actually tried to work on trying to flick one out, like a lot of spinners doing either swingers in.
Ashwin
does it a lot, like a carom ball type.
yes.
Yep.
And only now I've got the confidence to bowl it, and I've bowled it in the blast games and stuff
That
like
was sorry. That was amazing. When Saki was playing for Surrey, Saki, the off spinner. Why has he got two slips and a gully?
Yes.
He's an off spinner, and everyone's coming down the wicket trying to knock him through into to mid wicket.
Some quick
the other
ones.
way.
Some quick ones before the umpires go out. Will shortly. Dear twirlers, this is so. Hello, Nigel. I think we've basically touched this. Advice for a young leg spinner. His son John is 11. Can turn it quite sharply. I once heard Graham Swan say, and we just heard Mo say it, any young spinner should just give the ball a real rip and you can work on the accuracy later. Is that fair? Was that good advice for this for an 11-year-old young wrist spinner?
Personally, I think so, yeah. I mean, I do think that if you can get that shape on the ball and give it a good rip, then the more you bowl, the more accurate you will get with it.
Yeah. And also for a young spinner, look where you want the ball to land.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah.
I do remember Richie Benno doing one of these, saying, forget trying to bowl a googly or any of that, just get your leg spinner going, spin it hard, get your accuracy with that before you try doing any of the funky stuff.
Because a lot of spin bowlers you see, especially when they're youngsters and everything, so heads are everywhere and it's they're looking up at the sky or looking down at the floor when the ball goes over. What you try and do is keep your head up and look where you want to actually to land the delivery and in that sort of area, and as Mo said, spin it hard.
Jonathan Brenner is keeping wicket to spinners. I spend a lot of my time standing up to the stumps. Do your spin quartet agree that coded signals with your wicketkeeper about the type of balls you're going to bowl, or do you just rely on your keeper's natural skill to read them?
I just rely on the keeper to read it, because you can't be stood there going 5, 2, 1, 7, and then what if it goes wrong? Or you get I think as a spinner you get a natural instinct of when you want to bowl a variation or when you want to change things up, so you can't be then shouting it and telling the wicketkeeper, so you just got to trust your keeper's good enough.
Well, I had an incident with Just Butler. So when he was keeping, he started to do this trigger with his right glove where he would shake his glove, and I thought he's giving me signals to try and bowl wider, and I'd bowl like a wide off volley, get through the covers. I'm like, why did you keep? And he told me, no, that's my own trigger. That's not for you. So yeah, but I didn't have enough variations to have any of that.
So the relationship with the keeper, I mean,
it is very important. It is very, very important, because the keeper will tell you, with me and first slip, this is the type of pace I reckon on this wicket. This is a line to this guy. He's holding the bat this way. All these kind of things.
Just on that, going back to the great Knott Underwood days, and I remember asking Alan Knott, who kept brilliantly to Underwood, especially when it was wet, but he was bowling on a flat pitch in Karachi or Lahore. For a whole session, I asked Knotty, what was your best session of keeping? You know, when did you? And he said that 2-hour session at Lahore with Underwood bowling, I didn't take a ball. But I was ready to take everyone. So Underwood was described himself as a great bowler, a low mentality bowler, just bang on a lane.
Mike Stevenson, he's an elder statesman of the second 11 of Corbridge Cricket Club. Yesterday we played 2 young spinners, aged 15 and 18. They produced 2 great balls an over and 2 awful balls that they hit for 4s every over. We don't mind that, they're the future of the club. But the question is, how attacking should we be to encourage them, but to avoid their heads dropping quickly? So I guess, how
didn't Shane Warne say that he likes to bowl aggressively, but to quite a conservative field, and it was good enough for him. You know, you still want him bowling aggressively, but you can have an in-out field for a youngster.
I guess you don't want everyone out on the boundary, do you?
No, but I totally agree. I was somebody who, when I first started, I only thought being attacking and like through the gate, even if it wasn't spinning, I was always thinking, which is wrong obviously, but I would start with a normal field, and then eventually Richard Illingworth at Worcester, he was telling me, actually, why don't you start, if you're going to try and do that, start with a couple of guys back so you have some sort of protection. So rather than you come on bowl your first over for 8 to 12 runs, you're actually going for maybe 3 singles, 4 singles. And
I guess the youngsters, you're not quite sure where they're likely to get hit, though, are you? That's the problem.
But you can have sweepers on either side of the pitch. So if they are bowling, if their bad ball is short, you can have a deep cover, deep backward square and a mid wicket, and then that's sort of both sides of the pitch covered.
It's easier to bring them in than to start with them in and then take them out.
And that's when the heads start to drop, I guess, isn't it? If you're getting a bit of tap. Here's one from Derek that we haven't considered really. I used to enjoy watching Lance Gibbs with his octopus-style lolloping run-up. Remember Lance of the West Indies? Do you think the run-up and delivery angle is as important for a spin bowler as a fast bowler, and how much consideration have the spin bowler guests given to their run-up?
I've actually spent the whole winter trying to master the angle of my run-up before I went away to Australia, because I've tried coming through the umpire, round the back of the umpire, straight on. So I spent a good month or so trying to get the angle of my run-up right, just to help me line up with my, when I'm in my delivery stride. So it actually is quite important to make sure you have that angle right.
Angle and length, number of paces. How did you work out yours, Mo?
Yeah, mine was, so for a left-hander, when I was bowling to a left-hander and quite attacking, I would actually start wide and actually end up probably mid-crease. But the reason for that was, so when I landed on the off stump and it spun, a little bit of spin for the batter felt like it spun a lot more than it actually, and that was purely because of the angle I was coming at.
Yeah. Another thing crucial for spin bowlers, especially when they're young as well, is the old pivot on the front foot. Don't open that front foot too early and then just plonk it, because then you're not getting anything to sort of
Swivel.
Pivot.
Snap and pivot.
Yes, that's right, and sort of hold yourself. And
but your run, yours is unusual. A very quurky start.
Hop, skip and a jump.
Absolutely.
I was all over the place.
Did anyone ever try and stop that?
Well, no, not really, because that was just like your muscle memory, you sort of like
going.
Ba-bump, ba-bump, skip, ba-bump, ba-bump, jump, and it made it sort of...
Yeah, I mean, it depends how strong you are. Someone like Phil Edmonds, who Phil played with,
absolutely.
was such a strong man that he lost his run-up once, and he could bowl with venom off 2 paces. I didn't have a very strong eye. I don't expect you had a really strong one. So we both ran up a bit. And it's always important to remember, if you're bowling spin, people think, it's a soft option, you just dob it up there and, don't spend any energy. It is very important, and the keeper can help you with this, to say, am I really following through? Am I bowling the ball? Rather than just dobbing it there. You've got to still put a bit of effort in at the end and make sure you've got a bit of energy on it. And the keeper's a good man to keep... to let you know about
They always used to say, my wicket-keeper always used to say, he used to say 3 things sort of thing. He said, right, hold yourself there so you don't run through your action. and then get your chin down the wicket.
Yeah.
Go on, Tuffers, let's see your chin. Get the chin down the wicket.
I asked.
Sorry, can I just ask, didn't Damasceno tell you something?
Yeah, so
What was he telling you to do?
because when I first played for England, I had a nice shape on the ball, but it was real slow. And then all the coaches would pull down harder, have a strong action, and I just couldn't do that. Damasceno said to me, when you get up there, with your left hand, grab your pocket as quick as you can, your left pocket. It was the same thing essentially, but it was just a different way of coaching it, and that really helped me do the same thing as everybody else.
I managed to get a ball for this. And without saying anything, I was put it on the table. And I wonder which bowler, because all bowlers have to have a ball in their hands, don't they? I wonder which one it would be who'd pick the ball up and would have it in his or her hand all the time. It's Mo. You fiddle with that ball all the time. You can't help it, can you?
Yeah, and if there was a bat, I'd also probably pick that up.
I've got a great big piece of chocolate cake.
Last one, Tim from Somerset. Spinners are far from gentle. I remember Tuffers bowling a bouncer in a test match.
Well, I probably had to go somewhere.
You probably got cross.
Probably didn't get up above waist height.
Great fun, thanks everybody. I enjoyed that. Really enjoyed that, talking spin bowling.
Well, don't sound so surprised.
No, well, I'm Mo. Thank you, Alex, and Tuffers. Terrific.
The TMS podcast from BBC Radio 5 Live.
Oh, I love listening back to that. Always so good hearing from such expert voices from down the years, across the generations. That was our Spin Quartet from Headingley last weekend. You can find that amongst so many other podcasts available on BBC Sound. You'll find No Balls to Cricket podcast, Tail Enders, Stumped, and everything around England cricket as well, with the Test Match Special podcast. So many ways to keep up to date with what is happening. Here, what is happening is the ground covers are all on. The main cover is in the middle. We're still waiting for any cessation of the rain. It's not raining hard, but it's not gone away, Georgia Elwes. It's still lurking, and we're getting to the point of thinking we're not going to see more play, surely.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it does look like it's getting a bit brighter, but that is just blind optimism. I think there's a lot of water on those covers, aren't there? And the time in this game is the problem for England. South Africa, meanwhile, they'll be very happy with their feet up, won't they? And it's just a shame that this has been such a fantastic Test match, poised for what could have been such an exciting finish. Had we had no time out of this game, you're sure that there'd have been a result of some sort, whether that be South Africa batting on, setting a total and asking England to chase, or whether England could have bowled out this South African side and then chased it down. It is a shame that probably the one thing we'll be speaking about at the end of this Test match is, do we need a fifth day?
We might as well just record this conversation and see if we need to play it out again in the future, because it feels like we've been around in circles quite a few times with this. Exactly the same a year ago at Bristol, when we thought that they were set up for a perfect finale against India, and it never really quite happened because we'd lost most of the third day. So it's not uncharted territory, this. And I think there's two factors here. One, I think Test cricket, the women's game's got quite unlucky in the last few years, and also that lack of a fifth day means that any time out of the game really can have a big impact on the prospect of getting a positive result. So 181 for 5 is the score at the moment. That's where South Africa are. So they're ahead of England by a decent margin, and so England would need to go out there and chase at least 48, even if they were to take all the wickets immediately, which seems unlikely, and we need to be playing by 7. They can shake hands, the two skippers, in around about 45 minutes. So we'll find out what's going to happen then, I would have thought. What are the team feelings, you think, up there? Just deeply frustrated?
I think so. I think they will be. I think you see them all still in their whites out on the balcony, praying that they might get one more opportunity to get out there, but realistically you'd think it's going to take the ground staff a reasonable amount of time to get the water off the covers. There is an awful lot of standing water on the covers, and there's been patches, haven't there, around the outfield that the umpires have been concerned about already, and that was a serious downpour that we had. So unfortunately I think it's getting quite unlikely.
Yeah, it feels that way, doesn't it? Georgia, thank you for the time being, and we will be back with news as and when we get it about what the situation is here when anything changes. Nobody's on the outfield. The ground staff are tucked away somewhere having a cup of tea. I hope they've been busy, and the two umpires no doubt are having a little bit of a chat about how this all plays out. I can see up in the England dressing room. I think that's Sarah Glenn leaning against a metal bar up there as England prepare to, you'd have thought, shake hands with South Africa at some point in the next hour or so. Anyway, we've got more to keep you entertained, don't you worry about that. And what we can do is return after a long You'd have thought that after a bit of rest and recuperation, both sides will be firing fit and ready to go. We might see the likes of Shabnim Ismail, Koloe Tryon for South Africa, which will really boost their side.
Yeah, I think we will, and Ayabonga Kaka as well will surely come into the side as well, into contention, and I think that really boosts South Africa's chances. Fantastic white ball players. I'd have loved to have seen Ismail bowling in this test match. I think she really would have brought a point of difference for them as well, but into the white ball series, we know what she can do, and when she's fit and firing, and that feisty character. So that's exciting. I'm excited for the white ball series. I think the dynamics change again, don't they? And different players bat in different positions, and it's what they know best, that white ball stuff. And they'll be raring to go.
Alex, you expect a pretty closely fought series?
Yeah, I think it will be, actually. I think they're two evenly matched up teams. South Africa, one of the stronger white ball ODI teams in the world. I think they're actually ranked ahead of England at the minute, or they were certainly before the 50 over World Cup. So two pretty evenly poised teams. If you look at it, Natseva is probably going to be the point of difference for England with the ball and the bat, because she is the best all-rounder in the world. Having Sophie Eccleston, the best bowler in the world, that's where you look at the differences. But when you actually look down South Africa's team, they're a very well-balanced squad.
Yeah, they look a really good team, and there's match winners in that team. Marizanne Kapp is in the form of her life, and we expect at some stages Samadane van der Kerk will return as well after ankle injury, and the Commonwealth Games, I think, is the latest target for her. So we'll wait and see how that goes along. Looking forward to it a lot. Only takes one big Lizelle Lee innings, and we've got a really thrilling game. England should win this series. Is that the general feeling?
Well, I don't know if I think they would, expect to. Being in the England camp, they would go into the series full of confidence. But they've had some really tight games with South Africa in the last few battles that they've had. So they'll know. Then they'll be wary of the threat. And you look down that South African squad, and you think there are some fantastic cricketers there. Laura Wolvaardt at the top of the order looked in good touch in this game, and Lizelle Lee showed glimpses of what she could do. She almost played a test match innings as she would play a white ball innings, so that says that she's in the mood for that, and like I said earlier, it's what they know best, that this white ball stuff, and I think it's going to be a really exciting series, and one that is probably too close to call.
The only question you have with South Africa, who they're going to go with number 3. We saw them chop and change a couple of players in that World Cup, but I'm sure they've reflected on that, and they'll have that number 3 nailed down.
We've seen debutants in this test match. We're going to see some more debuts this summer. Do we think there's anyone else that could be waiting in the wings for this England side?
Oh, that's a good question, isn't it?
Well, I think we'll probably see some debuts from in the white ball stuff, certainly in ODI cricket, for I would say Lauren Bell. She's got to be in with a shout. Izzy Wong.
Is Emma going to be fit? She's going to be recovered from COVID. She was almost certain to play this test match until she got COVID and couldn't quite recover. She's someone that I would love to see play for England, along with Izzy Wong and Lauren Bell.
Yeah, so we'll have to wait and see. It feels exciting, though, doesn't it? It feels like there is a little bit of a new generation. Yes, Catherine Brunt will be back for the ODI, so that'll be a boost for England. But it just feels like there's a bit of a spark